It was like walking into a Rolex ad. The annual Whitaker family reunion. Suits worth more than my first car, fake laughs, handshakes that lasted too long. We were at the Whitaker estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. And as usual, I stood near the back, half hidden by a marble column, nursing a whiskey I didn't even want. The air reeked of money and smugness. Waiters moved through the crowd with little crab cakes and champagne flutes. Every conversation was a pissing contest. Promotions, IPOs, lakefront properties. I kept my head down, not because I was ashamed, just didn't feel like playing their game. "Dylan!" That voice could freeze a pond. I turned. Uncle Richard was already halfway across the room, waving a glass of bourbon and wearing that condescending smirk he'd perfected over 50 years. His Rolex glinted under the chandelier. "Still doing that IT thing?" he called out, loud enough for 3 other conversations to pause. "Can't believe you're wasting that degree." I forced a smile, raised my glass, and nodded. "Still at it. Before we start, how's your day going, and where are you joining from?" Cousin Brent strutted over right on cue, dress shirt so tight it looked vacuum sealed. "You know, if you're ever tired of fixing printers, I could probably hook you up with some real work," he said, elbowing me like we were buddies. "We need people who actually understand business." I smiled again, tighter this time. "I'm good where I am." They laughed. Him, Uncle Richard, some other third-string relative I barely recognized. Then they peeled off toward the buffet line like they'd just done their annual charity act, engaging with the underachiever. I tossed back the rest of my drink. They didn't ask what I actually do now, didn't care. What they didn't know was this: I own SpecterSec, a cybersecurity firm worth more than half the damn wine cellar here. For the last 7 years, my team's been silently dismantling their dirty acquisitions, one by one, undercutting every shady deal they thought they'd locked in. And every time Uncle Richard thought he was 2 steps ahead, it was me feeding the client intel, me locking them out, me ruining their margins. Still doing that IT thing? You have no idea, Uncle. I set down my glass and walked toward the patio. I had no interest in crab cakes, but I did enjoy the view, especially knowing it wouldn't be theirs much longer. I stepped outside onto the Whitakers' back patio, letting the cold stone bleed through my dress shoes. Fire pits crackled. Someone laughed too hard. My cousin Kyle was waving a bottle of champagne like he'd discovered gravity. And just like 10 years ago, I was right back in the same spot, looking in from the edge. Back then, I was 23, fresh out of Georgia Tech, with a master's in systems engineering and a chip on my shoulder the size of the damn estate. That year, I'd come to the reunion actually excited, thought I had something worth sharing. I'd spent months developing a scalable cybersecurity framework, lean, modular, built for logistics and warehousing, basically designed to protect companies like the ones Whitaker Ventures was eating alive. I printed out 10 copies of my pitch deck, wore a new suit, and actually rehearsed in front of the mirror. After dinner, I asked Uncle Richard for 5 minutes. He gave me 3. I stood in front of the fireplace, the whole damn family spread out across leather chairs and crystal tumblers. My voice cracked once, but I pushed through it. Talked about ransomware trends, digital vulnerabilities in supply chain software, threat mitigation in non-enterprise systems. When I finished, I looked around, waiting for someone, anyone, to ask a question. Instead, Brent barked out a laugh. "You trying to play Zuckerberg now?" Uncle Richard didn't even look at me when he said it, just swirled his drink and said, "Leave the tech stuff to Silicon Valley. If you want to learn business, start in warehouse ops. Sweep the floors, see how it really works." They moved on before I could reply. I just stood there, folder still in my hand, heat rushing to my face. That was the moment it clicked. Their version of success wasn't built on merit. It was inheritance. Groomed sons, controlled careers. If you didn't fit their mold, you were either ignored or pushed into grunt work until you broke. So I made 2 decisions that night. First, I was going to build it, my company, my way. Second, I'd never ask those bastards for anything again. The next week, I signed a lease on a 1-room office above a mechanic shop in Stamford. 70-hour weeks, instant ramen. Half the time, the walls shook from the hydraulic lift downstairs. I didn't care. I wrote code like my life depended on it. 3 months in, I landed my first client, small logistics firm. 2 warehouses barely hanging on. They'd been hit with ransomware, twice. IT guy had no clue how to fix it. I offered to rebuild their infrastructure from the ground up for half what the bigger firms were quoting. They said yes. I lived in that office for 6 weeks, slept on a cot next to the server rack, rewrote their back end, locked their firewalls, and put monitoring protocols in place, taught their staff how to avoid phishing traps. When the breach attempt hit again, we stopped it cold. They mailed me a check and a thank you card. Word spread. By the end of that year, I had 3 more clients. No venture capital, no family loans, just me, caffeine, and grit. I never talked about that night again, not even to my friends, but I never forgot how it felt to be laughed at by people who thought their money made them right. I just kept building, quietly, and I never showed up to another reunion without a plan. By the time I had 6 clients and a wait list, I knew it was real, not a hobby, not a fluke, a real company. So I gave it a name, SpecterSec. Fitting, right? A ghost in the system, unseen, untouchable. I brought on 3 people I trusted, one from a cybersecurity subreddit, one from grad school, and one I met at a networking event who hated corporate politics as much as I did. First rule I set, ironclad NDAs. No client names leave the room, no internal leaks. And absolutely no one says my name in connection to ownership. Not in contracts, not on LinkedIn, nowhere. To the outside world, I was still Dylan Whitaker, systems analyst at some faceless tech vendor with a cubicle and a supervisor who called me buddy like I was 12. That dummy job became my shield. Paid like crap, soul-killing meetings, but it was perfect cover. Nobody in my family asked about it. Hell, they couldn't tell the difference between front-end and firmware anyway. To them, I was just stuck. Fine by me. We outgrew the mechanic shop in 2 years. I signed a lease on a 10th floor office downtown. Big windows, solid floors, exposed brick. But no sign out front. No logos, no company name on the buzzer. Just a blank steel door and a keypad. Our niche was simple. Protect mid-sized firms from hostile takeovers. The kind of acquisitions my uncle's conglomerate specialized in. When Whitaker Ventures came sniffing around smaller logistics and freight companies, we were already there. We'd audit their systems, find the holes, patch them fast, and make it so nobody could get in, not even the ones with deep pockets and dirty lawyers. In 5 years, we saved over 80 companies from getting swallowed whole, and out of those, more than a dozen were Whitaker targets. I remember one deal in particular, late-night call from a freight company in New Jersey. Said their internal servers were suddenly being flooded with consultants from a private equity firm tied to Whitaker Ventures. We locked the system down in 6 hours and traced the breach attempt straight to an email registered under one of Brent's shell firms. I laughed so hard, I spilled coffee on my keyboard. They had no clue it was me. Every time they lost a bid or a company mysteriously pulled out at the last second, it was because SpecterSec was already 10 steps ahead. And not once did anyone in the Whitaker family ask how the deals kept falling apart. Quiet little Dylan, they called me at holidays. Still doing your tech thing? Yep. Just buying your lunch behind the scenes. We hit 7 figures in annual revenue by year 4. I still took the subway. Still wore clearance rack button-ups. Still dodged questions at family weddings about whether I'd ever step up and join the real business world. Meanwhile, my team was running 24/7 security protocols on companies with global shipping lanes, cross-border contracts, and dirty hands reaching from every direction. People thought I was invisible. Truth was, I just learned early on how to stay off radar until it was too late to stop me. It didn't take long for the smug to show up again. This year's Whitaker reunion had the same stale energy. Too much money, too many opinions, not enough soul. The estate hadn't changed. Neither had the people. But I had. I was near the bar when I heard Uncle Richard's voice booming from across the room. Finally closed that Daxon freight deal last quarter, he was telling a group of leather-skinned investors and bored wives. Took some wrangling, but we locked it in. I perked up. Daxon? That couldn't be right. I kept my face neutral, stepped a little closer. Hey, Uncle, I said casually. How's the merger going? Everything smooth? His eyes flicked to mine, smile fading just slightly. Some technical snags. Their IT infrastructure's a mess. Didn't they bring in a firm to help? I asked. Before he could answer, Brent wandered over, sipping something pink and expensive. Yeah, some security outfit with a spooky name. Spectre or whatever. Waste of money if you ask me. I smiled, slow and steady. Sounds fancy. What I didn't say was, we charged Daxon $2.4 million to overhaul their entire tech stack. We'd locked down every endpoint, encrypted their servers, and installed a proprietary access protocol that only we controlled. If Whitaker Ventures thought they were going to stroll in and take over, surprise. Brent chuckled like he'd just solved cybersecurity himself. I told Dad, we don't need all that. We buy companies to run them, not babysit them. Right, I said. That's worked out real well lately. He squinted at me. I took another sip and walked off, phone buzzing in my pocket. I glanced at the screen, flagged internal message from my COO, urgent, request for negotiation. Whitaker Ventures wants call with SpectreSec execs. Priority, high. I stopped in the hallway outside the guest bathroom and stared at the screen. They had no clue who they were reaching out to. They just knew something was blocking them, something they couldn't buy, threaten, or bulldoze. And now they wanted to talk. I looked back through the glass doors into the party. The same smug faces, same back-patting handshakes, same condescending glances thrown my way like I was still 23 with a printed PowerPoint deck and zero leverage. This was the moment. 10 years of silence, 10 years of setups. All those family dinners where they talked about real business while I chewed my food and bit my tongue. All those missed deals they chalked up to market shifts and bad timing. I checked the message again. They'd scheduled a meeting for Monday morning, sent over a non-binding NDA. Had no idea whose inbox they had just landed in. Brent was now chatting up someone's trophy wife by the piano. Uncle Richard was back to bragging about Daxon like the merger was a done deal. I watched them, actually watched them, and something in me snapped. Enough. I walked back out onto the patio, pulled my phone out again, and replied to the meeting request. One word, confirmed. No more behind the scenes. No more letting them speak first, or louder, or over me. It was time they saw who they had been losing to for the last 7 years. Time they saw who built the walls they kept slamming into. I didn't come here looking for revenge. I came for whiskey and polite distance. But now I wanted the table. And I wanted to flip it. The next morning, I stepped off the private elevator onto SpectreSec's executive floor. Tailored navy suit, polished shoes, zero hesitation. The glass doors opened with a soft hiss. Concrete walls, black trim, floor-to-ceiling windows. This was mine, every inch of it. My name wasn't on the walls, but my fingerprint unlocked every door in this building, including the one my family was currently sitting behind. Janelle met me just outside the conference room, tablet in hand, completely unfazed. "They're here," she said, like we'd been expecting a routine delivery. "Which ones?" "Richard, Brent, Kyle, and Linda. She's calling herself emotional support." I smirked. "How long have they been waiting?" 23 minutes. Brent asked if you were the tech guy and if you could grab him coffee. Of course he did. I adjusted my cufflinks, the ones with the SpectreSec insignia etched on the inside, invisible unless you knew where to look. "Let them stew another minute." Janelle stepped aside. "All yours." I pushed the door open. 4 heads turned. Brent looked up and barely registered me. "Hey, could you get us some—" "Sit tight," I said. Uncle Richard's eyes narrowed, forehead creasing like he couldn't place me. Kyle tapped something on his phone. Aunt Linda blinked like I'd tracked mud onto the rug. Then Richard squinted. "Wait a minute. Dylan?" I walked around the table and took the head seat. The CEO's seat. Brent looked confused. "Where's your boss?" I looked him dead in the eye. "You're looking at him." Silence, tight and sudden. Uncle Richard's jaw tensed. "This is a trick. You don't run this firm." I reached into the folder beside me and slid a stack of documents across the table. Headed with our logo, signed by me, dated, stamped. Aunt Linda leaned over to read it. Her face went pale. Brent didn't move, just stared at the paper like it was in another language. "SpectreSec," I said calmly, "operates with $280 million in annual revenue, 92% breach recovery rate, clients in 8 countries. Daxon Freight is under full protection with us." I stood and walked over to the touchscreen panel. One swipe and the wall lit up with our dashboard. Real numbers, real stats, all of it live. "You tried to take Daxon. I stopped you." just like I stopped 8 others you thought you had locked in. Richard's hands clenched around the armrest. You've been sabotaging our deals? No, I said. I've been protecting companies from people like you. Kyle looked like he wanted to crawl into his chair. Brent finally found his voice. So, what is this? You brought us here to brag? I pulled out the real contract. Thick, stapled, ironclad. I laid it in front of them. You're going to sign this. SpecterSec will oversee all of Whitaker Ventures' future acquisitions. Full audit rights, final veto power on every merger. You want to play the game? You play it on my field now. Brent stood up. This is blackmail. I didn't blink. It's business. He opened his mouth again, and I cut him off. By the way, your firm's top-paying client this year, you know that compliance audit you billed $100,000 for last quarter? He paused. That was us, under a dummy corporation. Aunt Linda looked nauseous. I leaned forward, dropped the final card. And if you don't sign this deal by Friday, SpecterSec will acquire 22% of Whitaker Ventures stock first thing Monday, through another shell firm you've never heard of. You'll be reporting to me, whether you like it or not. No one spoke. Even Uncle Richard looked like he'd been kicked in the gut. Janelle cracked the door, stuck her head in. Mr. Whitaker, your 11:30's on standby. I nodded. Thanks. We'll wrap this up soon. Richard stared at the contract. His hand twitched, but he didn't reach for it. You always thought I'd be grateful just to be in the room, I said. Now I own the damn table. And for once, nobody had a clever thing to say. 10 years of patience. 10 years of being invisible. It had paid off. I walked to the window and looked out at the city, mine now, not theirs, and let myself breathe again. I didn't plan to make it public, but once word leaked, I didn't stop it either. Mystery CEO behind SpecterSec revealed. Whitaker family outplayed. That headline hit the business wires before noon. By 5, it was on the homepage of 3 major financial blogs. Social media went feral. Memes, threads, think pieces. Some tech startup founder in Austin called it the cleanest long game checkmate in modern corporate warfare. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. But Aunt Linda did. She went on some podcast nobody listens to and tried to rewrite history. We always believed in Dylan. He just needed time to find himself. Her voice was sugary sweet, like she hadn't once laughed in my face at Christmas over her Chardonnay. So I pulled the video, last year's reunion. She's standing in the kitchen with Brent and Coyle, holding court like always. I mean, Dylan's trying, bless his heart, still doing that keyboard thing, probably fixing routers for a daycare. I posted it anonymously. It went viral in under 6 hours. Caption, bless your heart indeed. Brent tried a different approach. He went on LinkedIn, dropped a long post about supporting innovation in the family and how he always knew Dylan had it in him. No one bought it. The comments were brutal. Screenshots from the reunion. His face when I took the head seat. That clip of him asking me for coffee got turned into a GIF. His firm issued a statement the next day. Brent was taking indefinite leave to focus on personal development. Kyle reached out through a friend, wanted to explore a strategic partnership opportunity. I didn't even answer. We don't partner with people who laughed at us. But the real flood came from elsewhere. Young founders, solo devs, quiet engineers with side hustles. People who'd been talked over, shut out, ignored by family dynasties and gatekeepers. They weren't cheering because I humiliated the Whitakers. They were cheering because someone like them had finally won. One message stuck with me. A kid from Chicago, barely 20. You proved we don't have to be born into the room. We can build our own. That one hit different. Now, when I walk into a boardroom, I don't flinch. I don't pretend I'm just the tech guy. I don't sit in the corner waiting to be invited into the conversation. I am the conversation. And no one's laughing anymore. 3 months later, I hosted the Whitaker family reunion at SpecterSec HQ, main conference room, sunlight pouring in through the glass walls. Our kitchen staff handled the catering, roasted lamb sliders, craft cocktails, nothing frozen or fake. I stood at the head of the table, same spot I'd once taken just to prove a point. Only this time, there was nothing left to prove. Uncle Richard was retired now. His farewell letter arrived a week earlier, neatly typed, signed in blue ink. At the bottom, he'd scrawled one sentence that stopped me cold. You taught me more than I ever taught you. It wasn't a peace treaty, but it was enough. Brent showed up late. No handshake, no eye contact, just a stiff nod before he found the farthest seat from mine. He looked smaller somehow, like the air had been let out of him. Kyle, always the opportunist, came in smiling wide and holding a bottle of Cabernet. Said it was from a boutique vineyard in Oregon. I didn't bother telling him I owned it. The room quieted as I stood for a toast, glass in hand, chin high. To clarity, I said. May we all see more clearly who's actually in the room next time. Some chuckles. Some uncomfortable shifting. No arguments. Afterward, the crowd filtered out, one name tag at a time. Janelle stepped in with her usual perfect timing. "Your 4 o'clock's here," she said. "CEO of Trilogix Freight." I nodded. That company? Whitaker Ventures tried to gut them last year. Now they were knocking on our door for a partnership. I walked out to the lobby and met the guy with a handshake. Mid-40s, nervous energy, nice watch. "Come on in," I said. "We'll talk options." Janelle followed us in, already holding a fresh pot. "Want coffee?" she asked. "Yeah, the good kind," I said, "from our chain." She smirked and stepped out. As the CEO started explaining his pain points and his growth plan, I caught a glimpse of myself in the window, not a reflection I used to recognize,